Hey everybody, today we're going to take a look at a presidential political shift. This time it's going to be 1948 to 2020. There's 18 elections in between, so if you just want to skip ahead to the map, there will be a chapter down below in the description. But if you want to get some background about these two elections, let's get into it, let's put it up. So 1948, that was the classic Dewey defeats Truman election, but it was won by Harry Truman. He got 303 electoral votes, carried 28 states, and got 49.6% of the popular vote. The Republican was Thomas Dewey. He got 189 electoral votes and carried 16 states. Good enough for 45.1% of the popular vote. Now, going back that far, it does get a little confusing, especially in the southern states. We've got Strom Thurmond. For all intents and purposes, he's going to be listed as a third party. He's listed as a Dixiecrat here. We'll come back to that in a minute, but we're going to jump all the way ahead, more than 7 decades to 2020. This one everybody remembers. Joe Biden, 306 electoral votes, 25 states, D.C., and Nebraska's second, 51.3% of the popular vote. Donald Trump, 232 electoral votes, 25 states, plus Maine second, 46.8% of the popular vote. So let's get back to the spreadsheet. I'm sure you've probably seen better looking spreadsheets out there, but this is what we've got. We've got the states in the first column, then the 1948 Truman vote, then the 1948 Dewey vote. Then we jump ahead. We've got the 2020 Biden vote, the 2020 Trump vote, the Democratic shifts between those two elections, followed by the Republican shifts. And the last column, that's the net change between the two parties between the two elections. And then I've got shading. The darkest colors are 10 or more point shifts. The lightest colors are under 5-point shifts. So having said all that, let's get started in Alabama. And to make things simple, I took everything from Wikipedia. It's possible there's a rare mistake, but just for Alabama, let's put up those results. This has Strom Thurmond getting 79.8% of the popular vote, but that's not Harry Truman, the actual Democrat. Again, he was considered a Dixiecrat, and his alliance here says States Rights Democratic. For these shifts, that's going to go down as a 0 for the Democrats. I'm only putting up what the National Democrat got. In this case, that is Truman. So that leaves Dewey with only 19% of the popular vote. So in those southern states, it gets a little weird. To make it easy, that's what we're going to do. So back to Alabama. Again, in 1948, Truman got 0, Dewey got 19%. Jump ahead to 2020, Joe Biden got 36.6, Donald Trump got 62. That's a net gain of 36.6 for the Democrats, a net gain of 43 for the Republicans. Total net shift of 6.4 away from the Democrats and toward the Republicans. So that's how this works. Now we can quickly go through the rest of these states. Alaska, Hawaii, and D.C., they weren't states, so we could skip over those. So there's going to be a lot of big shifts. The next state is Arizona, and that shifted 9.7 toward the Republicans. Arkansas, that had the biggest shift out of all the states. That's a massive 68.3 toward the Republicans. California, big 28.7 toward the Democrats. Colorado, same direction, but a much more mild 8.1. Connecticut, back over 20 points, 21.7 toward the Democrats. Similarly in Delaware by 20.1. Florida had an 18.5% shift toward the Republicans. Georgia went 42.2 in that direction. Idaho also went 33.4. Illinois, that went toward the left by 16%. Now we've got some red shifts. Indiana, 15.2. Iowa, 10.9. Kansas, 5.7. Kentucky, a huge 41.1. And Louisiana, 33.9. Back toward the Democrats, we have Maine at 23.5. Maryland, 34.6. And Massachusetts, 22. And Michigan, a much smaller shift there of 4.4. Now we go back toward the Republican side. We've got Minnesota at 10.2, Mississippi 24, Missouri 32, Montana 26.2, Nebraska 10.8, and Nevada, that had the least change out of all the states, coming in at 0.7 toward the Republicans. Next, New Hampshire, and even 13 toward the Democrats. New Jersey 20.3, also in that direction. New Mexico had a mild red shift of 2.7. New York had a big blue shift of 24.2. Now back toward the Republicans, we've got North Carolina at 26.6, North Dakota 24.5, Ohio 8.4, Oklahoma a gigantic 58.6. Next state, Oregon, toward the Democrats by 19.5, Pennsylvania same direction 5.2, and Rhode Island 4.6. Now we've got more shifts toward the GOP. South Carolina 32, South Dakota 21.4, Tennessee a major 35.4, Texas even bigger at 47.3, Utah 29.4, Vermont Vermont had the biggest shift toward the Democrats. It used to be a red state, but we're looking at an even 60% shift toward the Democrats. Virginia, small shift toward the Democrats of 3.2. Washington, a bigger shift there of 9.3. West Virginia, hard red shift of 54. Wisconsin, mild red shift of 3.7. And Wyoming, another big lurch toward the Republicans of 47.6. So those are the states. Here's your national shift. Both parties gained 1.7. So surprisingly, that results in no net change going from 1948 to 2020. So those are all the shifts. And if you want to visualize these changes, we can take it all. We can apply it to a map. Let's take a look at that. Here it is. We've got similar shading. The darkest colors are 10 or more points. This time, the very lightest colors are under 1 point shifts. That's the tilt margins. There's only one, and that's Nevada. So we've got 4 levels of shading this time. This is the 2024 electoral map. Republicans are the winners of these shifts. But what are the other takeaways? Well, 1948, that was a relatively close election, similar to 2020. Dewey ran in 1944 and lost to Roosevelt. So he ran again in 48. He lost 2 in a row. But a lot of the margins in those states in 48 were very narrow. Plenty were only a point or two and easily could have went in the other direction. Probably some similarities there with 2020. But the shifts on this map actually look like what we would expect. The West Coast, the Northeast, those had the deepest blue shifts. The Great Plains, the Midwest, the South, that's where Republicans have made significant gains over the decades. This map actually almost looks like an electoral map we might have seen in the past 20 years. A lot of the margins in these states almost look like the margins we would expect in an election today. Of course, there's some exceptions, but considering this is over so many years, it's impressive to see something we recognize today. So I'm sure you could look more into the history of individual states, even individual counties. You could see what the laws were in certain states, take a look at the local appeal, both of Truman, Dewey, and also the third-party candidates, including Strom Thurmond. A lot happening in the country back then. I'm sure there's plenty of nuance you could look into. I'll leave that up to you, but I did put together these shifts. There's bright spots for both sides, but the Republicans are the winners of these shifts, and I'll leave it there for now. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about any of the shifts in any of these states? Are there any unique reasons as to why some states voted the way they did back in 48 and why they shifted the way they did since? Which states are you most surprised and least surprised by? Let me know down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next video.